Hi, and welcome to Infertility Unfiltered, where fertility experts and warriors are joining forces to provide you with tips, tricks, inspiration, and all the things so that you can take back control of your life and get your baby on board. Hi, I'm Jennifer Robertson, and today we are joined by Mel Johnson. Now, Mel is the creator of Stork and I, following her own journey into solo motherhood. She's a qualified social infertility coach who supports women from around the world who want to have a baby but are not in a relationship. She also documents a day in the life of a solo mum on the Stork and I Instagram to give an insight into what daily life is like for those considering following the same path. And she's also the host of the Stork and I podcast for single women considering solo motherhood. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. All things solo motherhood, the challenges, some tips. We're going to talk about Mel's journey and all of the things so that if you're on this journey by yourself, then you'll be fully prepared. So thank you so much for joining us, Mel Johnson.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, before we dive into some tips and challenges, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your journey as well? I think it's just fascinating.
Sure. So basically, I am 41 now, and when I was 29, I came out of a 7-year relationship and had thought that I would be getting married and having children probably in the next few years. But I thought to myself, well, I'm only 29, I've got ages to find somebody to still fulfill that dream. But for anyone who has been internet dating in their 30s, they'll probably resonate with the story that actually I didn't find it easy, and really with a lot of effort, just wasn't successful meeting someone who I felt was a suitable partner that I could settle down with. So when I was 35, I started to worry that I might miss out on motherhood because I wasn't able to meet the right person, but didn't want to settle for someone because I wanted to be a mum. So I started investigating donor conception and becoming a mum on my own. When I was 36, I was still single, I thought, I think this is something I'm definitely going to do. And then I actually went through IVF with donor sperm when I was 37, and I created 3 embryos, and the first embryo transfer wasn't successful, but then the second embryo transfer was successful, and I now have a 2.5-year-old daughter, Daisy. So I would say that that summary made it seem very easy, but the big challenge for me was letting go of the idea of having a baby in a partnership. I'd always presumed I would meet someone, get married and have a baby, what we say, the more traditional way, and it was very difficult for me to let go of that idea. And although I was surrounded by an amazing friendship group and really supportive family, I felt very alone in the situation because I didn't know a single other person who was considering or had done the same thing. And so I decided to start the Stork and I because I am anyway a qualified coach, and I felt like if I could just make women in the same situation feel less alone and more informed of the options and more empowered, then hopefully no one else had to feel as alone. So that's kind of a little bit of the background.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. IVF and the path for that is really isolating to begin with. So I think it's really important to have a support network around you. What were the challenges and the barriers around it? So once you got, okay, let's talk about that first. How did you get to the part where you were okay with that, where that picture in your head wasn't such a dominant force and you were able to let that go? Because I think sometimes, just on this journey as well, and I had the experience when I was trying to conceive, like I had the picture in my head of it was just going to happen and I wouldn't have to go down IVF or surrogacy or anything like that. So how did you get beyond that picture in your head and accept that this was your path?
So I would say two things. So one is it's a bit of a gradual process, and that's what I tell my coaching clients. It wasn't sort of one day where I just woke up and thought, actually I'm going to do something different. It was kind of a continual path of working through it and trying to reframe what I was thinking. So I would say it's a continuous journey, and actually for me, I was learning it as I go. Now I've got a whole formula that I teach people, which if I'd known then might have made it a bit easier, but it was just learning how to see things differently, and just to let go of the fantasy, I suppose, that I'd created. And then what I would say is the second thing is around time. So I just thought from a biological point of view and a fertility point of view, I had to just make a decision. So I would say personally, I hadn't fully committed to that decision when I made it, but I felt like I had to make it because the worry about missing out on motherhood was greater than the worries I had about doing it on my own. And something I try to reassure people on is I do have women contacting me saying I'm pregnant and I'm not over the moon, and it's quite common because you focus on a positive pregnancy test when you're going through the process, and then when you get a positive pregnancy test, all of a sudden all of the next part of the journey opens up that you might not have been thinking about, and it can be very overwhelming. And so I would say that you can continue on the journey to come to terms with the situation you're doing it in, for a long time. So for me personally, when I got pregnant, that's when I really then embraced doing it on my own and let go of any comparison of how it could have been with a partner. But certainly for some of the women I speak to, it's a continual journey to try to come to terms with it. But that's what I really try to help people with, letting go of the fantasy and rewriting your own personal fairy tale, which is different to what you thought it might be, but it doesn't have to be worse. It's equally positive, it's just different, and that's what I try to help people work through.
Yeah. And do you have some techniques, some practical techniques or exercises that you work through with them?
Yeah, so one of the techniques that I use is around script. So it's around identifying what your script is. And, people of my generation, I'm in my early 40s, we grew up with a life script of meet a partner, get married, have children. That's what was in the fairy tales, that's what's in films, that's what's in books, that's what our parents did. So subconsciously, most people presumed that that's what would happen to them. I surveyed the solo mum community, and 95% of them said that that's what they had presumed would happen, with 5% saying, I never wanted to do it that way. So a very small percentage thinking that they would always become a solo mum, the vast majority thinking that they would live that life script that we grew up with. And so just identifying that that's our script, and then thinking about what a different script could look like is one of the exercises that I take people through. And then there's multiple exercises. I actually run a group coaching course where we work through together, and part of the power is meeting other women who have exactly the same feelings, and just sharing them and knowing they're quite common feelings is also quite powerful in working through some of it.
Absolutely. And realizing that you're normal, like you're actually in a group of other people who are doing exactly the same thing. And so I think normalizing it and talking about all of the things that they're going through is really helpful as well. And so what are some of the challenges that you went through in terms of, obviously you have to have a network or a community around you, whether I know you speak about your mother being a huge support for you. What were some of the barriers that you came up against in terms of insensitive comments, questions, just so that I feel like if we're prepared for the questions or the insensitive comments that come up, what are some scripts that you used to run in terms of dealing with people's reaction to it not being the normal path of becoming a mother?
Yeah. So I'd say there's a couple of things that that sometimes you get asked. So I think the first one is people's judgment that it'll be very difficult. Are you sure you want to do this? You know, do you know how difficult it will be? And I think that yes, it is very difficult. And I think if you ask any mum, there's not many people that I've spoken to who said, oh, it was so easy. You know, most people say certain elements of it are challenging. So it is difficult. And I think everyone needs to go into it with their eyes open that it's challenging. But my view is, since when did we not do things that were challenging? You know, there's plenty of things that are challenging, and it's just being up for that challenge. And so I think it's going in with your eyes open, knowing it's challenging, and then looking at how you can make it less challenging. And one of the things is building a great support network so that you aren't doing it on your own, you're doing it without a romantic partner. And I'm very clear about that language. I'm certainly not doing things on my own. I haven't got a partner. Getting people in your friendship group, in your family, in the community, and just putting things in place so that you feel like you have that support, I think has made it much easier for me. I think the second thing would be finances. It depends what country you're in, but certainly in the UK, you have to fund this yourself. If you've got a medical infertility issue, then it's different. But if it's social infertility, then you'd have to fund it yourself. So you have to fund treatment, and then you are the sole breadwinner. So you have to be able to afford to look after yourself and a child. So for me, I'm in the lucky position where I had been able to save to pay for the treatment, and and a bit for maternity leave, and I'm in a financial position where I can make this decision. Lots of women are not as fortunate, and it's really about getting those savings in place, thinking if it's something you're considering, the number one thought is, okay, well, how can I get myself financially ready? I've got clients who've done all sorts of things. They have moved in with their parents to save money, they've Airbnb'd a spare room, they've downsized their house, they've got a second job, anything. If your number one desire is to make this happen, basically whatever you need to do to make it possible. So finances are a second one. And then the third point I would say is the worry about the fairness to a future child. So is it fair to bring a child into the world who's donor conceived, who won't know who their biological father is? And for me, I worked through that, and I have a release ID donor, so my daughter will have some details about them, and then when she's 18 she will be able to get the contact detail if she wants to try to find him. And then I'm very, very conscious about making sure she's got a lot of positive male role models in her life. So she spends a lot of time with her granddad, who she idolizes, with my brother, so her uncle. And I have a lot of great male friends who really play a significant role in her life. So I feel like she has a lot of great male role models, even if she doesn't have one particular father figure in her life. She gets stuff from my network, and not just males. There's lots of amazing females in my life as well. So, she gets lots of good role models.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of that. And I love that you mentioned before social infertility, and I think that's such a good phrase for it as well. And I do notice that you are a social infertility coach, and I think that's amazing. So what are some of the lessons that you learned? Some of the things that you probably would have done a little bit differently, some of the things that you talk to women before they even embark on it, or will they on the journey? Like, what are some of the things that you really learnt from this? Because I'm assuming like you're a completely different person than you were when you first decided to go this alone.
Yeah. So I think the number one lesson I learned, and the number one piece of advice I give others, is lose the worry about what other people think. So so many of us worry about people's judgments. Firstly, the vast majority of people have overwhelming support for this decision. So there will always be people who don't agree with it, the same as anything. But the vast majority of people, I think our worry about what people think is far greater than the reaction, but also it's not anybody else's.
It's none of their business.
No. So try to not worry about what others think. I think the second thing, and what I really work a lot with people on, is try to stop the comparison. So what we tend to do is to compare to a fantasy. So I also saw a quote on Instagram that I loved, which is around, don't compare your real life to somebody else's show reel highlights. And I thought that's so true. So you get a little snippet of their life, which looks amazing, and then compare yours to that. And actually, I think that there's many positives of doing it on your own. There are things that are for sure harder, but there are some things that are easier. So it's around not just comparing to all of the things that might be easier with a partner, but just focusing on you and how to make the best out of your situation. And then the third thing I would say is get into the community. So however good your friends are, and I've got some amazing friends, nothing beats getting together with other solo mums who get it. They're in exactly the same position, and there's so much power and positivity from being connected to those people. And you can connect on Instagram, there's Facebook groups, and then we've connected in real life, so taking some of those online connections and meeting people locally, really powerful, and I think that's really helped me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you spoke about some of the advantages, some of the bonuses that have come. So what do you see are the advantages of the way that you've done it?
Well, I mean, I've got some quite funny stories on. I think one of the big advantages, and it depends if you're a massive control freak like I am, is that you can do things your way. You have the decision. You don't have to negotiate with anybody. So when I went to an antenatal class, the lady who was taking the class said, has anyone chosen a baby name? And I was the only one who'd chosen a baby name. And I had a bit of a chuckle to myself, because I thought, probably just because it's only my choice and everyone else is negotiating. Yes. And it's just a small silly example, but so many examples of where I get to decide everything, and do things my way. I can be very selfish in terms of how I spend my time. My evenings are my own. I don't have to worry about, especially at the beginning when you're tired, you don't have to worry about your relationship with a partner. You only need to focus on your relationship with your child, which can also be a huge advantage. I know many women struggle with the changing relationship with their partner, particularly in those early days of being a new mum, and you haven't got to worry about that. And then it very much depends on the partnership, but and the individual. For me, there's, I don't have to rely on anyone else. I don't ever feel frustrated that anyone's let me down, or someone hasn't done something and I feel like they're not doing enough, because it's all for me to do. So personally, for me, I find that there's some advantages. And just another silly thing, I decided I want to move house and live closer to my parents. So I'm moving house to move closer to my parents. I don't have to negotiate with anyone. Is that okay? We needed to change Daisy's nursery. So there's definitely some positives there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love everything about it. Mel, you're amazing. I love what you're doing. I love the community that you've built. I love the support that you're providing to everyone. How can people get in contact with you after this?
So you can follow me on Instagram, so the Stork and I, with underscores between the name. That's probably the best way. And then if you go to the storkandi.com website, you can see an overview of the different coaching I offer. So if people are considering embarking on this and want more information, the main thing I do is a group coaching course called Choosing Solo, and it takes women through the emotional side of things, things, the practical process side of things, and then just gives them an opportunity to chat to each other. And it's global, so I've had people, many people from the UK, but we've had people dialing in from Australia, so it's their morning when it's our evening, from America, from Canada, from all over Europe. So it's amazing meeting women from all over the world, no matter what country you're in, facing the same challenge. You've got a deep-seated desire to be a mum, and that doesn't change just because you haven't got a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a beautiful place and a beautiful community. So thank you for all that you do. And thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, if you love this interview as much as I did, please feel free to give it a little love, share it, like it, and make sure you subscribe to this channel so you can get all of the interviews as they come live as part of the Infertility Unfiltered series. So thanks for watching.